Okay, welcome everybody. There's three things I'd like to tell you about today. The first thing is that virtual reality is designed as an improvement to less precise techniques. The second thing is that it's an ideal tool for shopper research. It defines the impact of shopper marketing initiatives, category management strategies. It tells us what will happen when we do these types of things. And third, I want to talk a lot about technology enhancements that will continue to develop, but not all of these enhancements are going to be as useful as they sound. First of all, we should say happy birthday to virtual reality because it's coming up next week on 25 years since we launched virtual reality. It was born as a reaction to doing in-store observation or analysis of syndicated sales data, or as I'll show you, very reactive and inefficient central location methods, or the expensive and time-wasting controlled store tests. We often use passive measures of shopping behavior, whether it's in-store observation, shop-alongs, analysis of syndicated sales data. And these are great for generating hypotheses. I've watched people go shopping. Hey, I think here's what's going on. You find the occasional nugget, but also some incredibly simple and simplistic solutions. And that's one of the downsides of these. A number of the in-store observation and shop-along companies will report, oh, we figured this out. And the listeners are sort of saying, well, gee, there's a blinding flash of the obvious. And when you're just looking at stuff and observing, there's no test of whether your idea about how to leverage this is correct or not. So we moved from, we determined that we needed better science. This is my friend Bill Bean, my favorite picture of him from his Mattel days. When Bill used to like to say there are lots of ways of knowing the world, only one of them is science, and a good control group is hard to beat. So a diehard experimentalist. We used to do shelf research in central locations. And what would happen is the companies would create a mock shelf, as you see an example of a terribly unrealistic looking sour cream and whipped cream cheese shelf. Put it in a central location, ask people to go shopping, and it just was never a great idea. So we came up with a better idea. Let's go into actual stores and do controlled store tests. Let's create multiple store panels, each receiving one level of the test variable. You need 10 to 15 stores per panel, and you need 3 or more purchase cycles for the category. And then you analyze this with the analysis of covariance. Typically, you have a pre-period and a post-period. You let it run in one panel, the other stays the same, and you read the difference in sales. Now, these are both much more scientific approaches to getting at what will happen when you make a change at the shelf or in the store. They're very specific. You're asking a very specific question. You're getting a very specific answer back, which may be an upside, may be a downside. And if you're talking about controlled stores, it's as realistic as you get. You're doing it in the store. There's nothing to left besides that. They also have downsides. The central locations can be very unrealistic. They can be expensive. I've done controlled store tests in my earlier days that were well into $1 million or more. They can be time consuming. When you need 3 purchase cycles in a controlled store test, in a product like laundry detergents, that can be 6 months to a year. They are inefficient. In a central location, you can only show people one type of shelf and then they're done. The same in a controlled store test in that sense. And more importantly, for a controlled store test, they're not confidential. Anybody can go in and see what's being done. And salespeople are trained to look for, is there anything different going on in a store? So when virtual reality was created, it was built to overcome these issues. We wanted an approach that gave us good experimental control, that the only thing that would be varying is what we wanted to vary. Everything else stayed the same. We needed a system that was confidential, that the only people who knew what were going on might be the people who were participating as shoppers. We needed an inexpensive system. We did not want another $1 million system. We did not even want a $100,000 system. And it had to be quick to run. So we created our first version. Ray Burke, now at the University of Indiana, but at the time at Harvard Business School, created Visionary Shopper back in 1993. It was the first virtual reality system for marketing research. It combined a very awkward touchscreen and trackball combination for moving around. As you can see from the picture, it had kind of a cartoonish look to it. And in particular, it had a problem with round or odd-shaped objects. It could only do flat things or boxes. We took care of that over time, and then made a major step up in 2003 when we created the 4D Shopper research system, which is what we still use today. It allowed us to walk around shelves and walk around stores. It had an easier navigation system for the shopper. It's fast and easy to execute. And by fast and easy, we're usually talking about a month to 6 weeks, top to bottom, and often quite faster. And it's been extensively validated. Over and over, we've shown that what shoppers do in this version is what they do in the real world. We just introduced in the past year, and I wish I could show you videos of this, but we can't show them on GoToWebinars. We introduced 4D Shopper Plus. It's a photoreal store environment using Azure Knowledge's DigiWalk system, where they go in, take thousands and thousands of pictures of a store, and magically, it seems to me, put them back together to create an environment that you can walk through. They're able to cut in test categories, for example, the potato chips or chip section that you see here, which we can make shoppable. So we can take people around the stores and let them walk around, or we can take them directly to sections we want them to shop. We can arrange those sections any way we want. We also introduced, but I want to caution you that we're not using it a lot, what we call True VR. We can actually take the DigiWalk's environment and turn it into true virtual reality using headsets to move around the store and interact with products. We can do it today, but it still has some downsides. We've gotten over the issue that earlier companies had trying this of lack of clarity on the products. Quite often you pick up a product, you still couldn't read the ingredients. We've fixed all that part of it. It does create vertigo in the novice to virtual reality, and that's kind of a nasty side effect that has not yet gone away from VR. Our sample is limited to those who already use VR headsets, and gee, that may not be a great group of people for your particular product. If you're testing a new game, it's a perfect group. If you're testing laundry detergent, not so much. And it hasn't been validated yet, but we're working on that piece of it. Now, some people have asked us about some of the things we can do in the future, or can we do some of these things in the future? One of the things people are very much interested in is doing eye tracking along with this shopping in either the plus realistic environment or in virtual reality. We have the ability to track eye movements in our base version and the Plus Photo Real version. We have a third party that very efficiently and relatively inexpensively merges video of the screen that you're watching and your eye tracking, mushes them together. We can code viewing areas and do all the classic eye tracking questions and measures that you would like to do. There's still the question of whether virtual reality viewing is real. When we talk about a shelf, we were able to compare a virtual store and a live store and eye tracking in both. And you can see that there's a pretty good correlation going on between the two modes of collecting data. That said, I'm not sure you look at a store as a whole as you walk in the way you normally would when you would go into that store. The second thing people have talked about is facial coding, and we actually have the ability to do facial coding. We're raising the question of whether we should even bother when we're talking about consumer packaged goods, or for you, Andrew, fast-moving consumer goods. And the question really comes down to, do shoppers really react much to products and shelf sets in a visible way? I don't recall being in a grocery store and watching people showing much joy or surprise, disgust or fear or anger. Sadness maybe if your product isn't there, if it's out of stock. But otherwise, I'm not sure this is as big an issue for shopping research as it may be for other areas of marketing research. We would love to be able to do multiple senses. I can deliver audio. There's actually a technique to deliver sense. As a matter of fact, years ago, Ray Burke was playing around with this idea of picking up a package of bacon and delivering the bacon scent to you. It's terribly obtrusive. You have to wear a mask, and it's awkward, and it can be very weird with some of the scents. So we don't think that multiple sensory experiences are going to be delivered quickly. And of course, haptic or touch is a serious problem. Now, why do people want to do this? Grocery stores in America are designed in one of two ways. Either the meals to take home section or the bakery is usually what you encounter as you walk into an American grocery store. And the idea is that smell will hit you and entice you. And people have said, can you simulate that? And I said, yes, we can, but we're not sure it's a real good simulation of that phenomenon. And finally, the question has come up, can you use this for online shopping? And the answer to this is, I'm going to be mealy-mouthed about it. In theory, yes, you can. It's not cheap. There's maintenance and logistical nightmare issues, although you could do it for a chain of stores. The bigger issue is there's no evidence yet that it would be any better for online shopping in a grocery store or drugstore or mass merchandiser than the ways we're doing it now, which is essentially a list function. So 3 things I wanted to get across. Virtual reality is definitely improvement to less precise techniques, more intrusive or obtrusive techniques, techniques that take a long time and can cost a lot of money to execute. It's ideal for looking at packaging, pricing, promotions, shelf assortments, layouts, because you're doing it all in the context of the store. And technology enhancements will continue. We're continuing them as we speak, but not all of them will be as useful as we'd like to think they will be. And with that, thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. That was really interesting. Remember, you can ask questions on the question panel on the GoToWebinar control panel, or hashtag NewmR on Twitter. And there's a question here from, I'll say, Labright username on Twitter. Steve, Can VR help for long purchase cycle products?
Yeah, it's great for long purchase cycle products. What you realize is you're not getting purchase frequency. So if your marketing action is designed to get people to buy something more often, you won't measure that. But if you're trying to measure when I move the shelf around, are more people picking up and buying my product, it's perfect for it.
Interesting. What for you, because you've been a practitioner of this for quite a long time, what sort of tech advance are you really looking for that you think will really, make it, take it to another stage?
The day when we can fully immerse somebody comfortably in a virtual environment will be the next stage. We're years away from that, but we can see it on the horizon now, whereas a few years ago, if you'd asked me that, I'd say we're not even close.
Interesting. Yeah, the vertigo issue being a big thing, I presume.
Sure. And here's the other thing you need to realize. As this technology develops, it's still expensive to run on a mass scale if you want to do true virtual reality and use it for marketing research. We've shown over and over again that in our validation work that we're awfully close to where you can be. You can't get a lot more improvement. So we're not sure that spending a ton of money to get just another percentage point or two correlation is worthwhile.
Yeah, RAS, according to the GRIT study, it shows that many agencies and clients don't use VR. Do you think this will change over the next 5 years? Do you think it's something that's really going to come of age?
I think that VR is something that's used to answer a specific question. When you run out of, and it's not a question a company has all the time. So you come in, you use it, you say, great. You might say, gee, I wonder if it works on these other 3 brands we make. You run those. And then you're kind of done for a while. You may or may not have those issues. Companies that have a really well-developed shopper marketing function or a very active category management function are using it all the time. Companies for which these are new things or secondary things might come in once every 2 or 3 years for a study.
Right, and purchase cycle plays a part in that as well, obviously.
Long, yeah.
Okay, I think that wraps up the questions. Thanks very much for that, Steve. Really interesting.